Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of What Is It Like to Be You? This is our second ever episode, and I am so excited to have the guest that we have on today. Her name is Siobhan Cunningham, and man, I just adore this woman. And so I'm super excited to bring her to you guys so that you can feel what I feel. Um, I am excited because not only is she a Black woman in America, she is a Black woman who was in the military, and she is a Black woman who lives in Alaska, by the way. And so I'll let her tell you more about herself. But I am so curious to learn what it's like to be you, Siobhan.
Well, first, mutual love and respect for you, Souraya, and everything
Thank
you're
you.
doing. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so what is it like to be me? Less and less exhausting is the easiest answer. And that's the goal, is to continue to release some of these things that are making me so tired and drained.
I love it. I love it. So, what is it that you do up there in Alaska? And what part of Alaska are you in?
I am in Anchorage, which is the largest city in Alaska, which may or may not mean anything. I mean, it's a city. This is an actual city, but it's just compared to like New York or Miami, it's not
Okay.
that big or robust. But I like it here. There are beautiful mountains. It's very picturesque.
Picturesque.
Thank you. And there's a lot of diversity here that you may not expect. And yeah, I'm starting to infiltrate myself into more communities of like-minded individuals, and that's really helped with me growing as a person who lives out here.
I
Yeah.
love that. Now, is there a city there called, and I may be wrong, I don't know. Never been to Alaska.
Juneau.
Juneau? Okay.
Juneau's our capital, and it's
Okay.
not like Juno. It's spelled a little different.
Yeah.
Don't get me to spell it, I'll be wrong. But yeah, Juno, it's our capital. Fun fact, I have not been there because you have to either get there by, it's an island. So you have to get there either by boat or plane. And anytime
What?
I try to like get the muster to go, I'm like, I don't really want to have to do alternative means of transportation just to go out there.
Yeah, I didn't know it was an island. That's
Yeah.
so interesting to me. Now, have you ever been on a cruise and like an Alaskan cruise? That's not something that you would typically do because you live there.
No, I would love to do it. It's just timing wise and price. Like I live here, so I'm
Yeah.
like, where's the discount? So when
Yeah.
it gets to a price that I'm willing to pay to go explore Alaska more on a ship, I will be glad to go. It's just nothing. It hasn't been the right timing for me.
Okay. I want to do one. I want to do an Alaskan cruise, but I will say this. I am a little bit, I don't like using the word afraid because I don't really feel like I'm afraid of much other than like spiders and snakes. But I do have somewhat of a fear of like glaciers and
Oh,
and the fact that I can't see them underneath the water. So if I can't see them underneath the water, then how is the captain of the ship gonna see it underneath the water? So
technology. That's the answer. They have like radars
oh,
and sonars. They know.
I guess. Okay. Mhm.
This is not the Titanic.
I guess that's the like, oh Jesus. Okay. That's okay. One of these days I'm gonna go on one because I've heard it's incredible. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
go.
But when you come up here, there are other glaciers you can walk on and explore that you don't have to do a cruise to see. So you have options.
Walk on a maybe I'm gonna add that to my bucket list. Walk on a glacier. Never even considered that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Gave me something else to do with my life. I don't know. I love traveling, so we'll see. So, how this works is we have 35 questions
Oh, geez.
that
Okay.
you get to choose from. So I'm going to have you pick numbers between 2 and 34. Number 1 and 35 are givens. I'm going to ask you number one first. And then from there, we're going to pick numbers and we're going to see what we're going to talk about today because I really want to dive deeply into what it's like to be you. So the very first question is when you look into the mirror, what is it that you see?
The first thing that popped in my head was beauty.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. I love it. I love it. Do you believe that this is a sidebar to that question? Do you believe that that's what other people see when they see you?
I would say it doesn't matter.
I
Uh,
love that. That's my favorite answer, honey. Because yes.
Yeah, I know now. Before, as a kid, that would be a struggle. I had insecurities, and I know not everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, you're the next, I don't know, Halle Berry, Gabrielle Union, whoever we're going to pick, Um, but it doesn't matter because I love who I am. And really, I'm not even going to lie. It was my first daughter. She came out and she looks exactly like me, just a few shades lighter. And I was like, I'm gorgeous.
Yeah. And I made another one. Yes. Oh, I
Yes.
love it. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you for that. Okay, so pick a number between 2 and 34.
17, lucky number.
Ah, one of my faves. Okay. How do you hope to challenge people's perceptions of you or people like you?
This is a very timely question because I started a new position as director of behavioral health, and there it brought up there's only I and one other clinician look like this. So
Mhm.
skin tone and hair, we kind of look very similar.
Okay.
And everyone was shocked that I was selected to have the leadership position that I have. And she felt the need to explain some previous diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges that they've faced. And so I don't go off topic. Can you just repeat the question one more time?
Wow. How do you hope to challenge people's perceptions of you or people like you?
Yes. So um, in the military and even in my marriage, I'd kind of fallen into this situation where I was the only one of me in very, um, conservative, white, usually male dominant circles. And it was a double-edged sword in the sense that I felt I had to be the model Black person they know, because, like, if I'm the only one, I want you to think we're fantastic.
Right.
And then also feeling the pressure to have to speak up on behalf of the voice that
All
would
of us. Right.
be, whether pro or against whatever they're talking about or whatever. And it was a challenge. And I've gotten to the point now where I have no interest or in willingly give up opportunities to try to advocate for a whole group of people. I walked into this position. First of all, I was hired directly, almost essentially, by the CEO of the company. And so my original interaction with the leadership was positive. I had did not have this negative concern. Um, that was only myself. So I coming in, I was like, oh gosh, like these people are not gonna like me. Like,
Right.
what am I doing here in this world? But I realized that was my own stuff, and it was probably lingering stuff from not generational trauma, not even my trauma. Because if I look back at my life, I've been very successful in anything I've put my mind to. I would say, except for in the military, but that's because I set an expectation to be what they wanted me to be, as opposed to being setting the expectation that I'm going to do what's within my boundaries and stand by them. And so now that I've learned and
Mm.
grown, I realize that that is how me being myself and being okay with who that person is and not shifting just based on who's in the room with me is how I handle representation for other people. I know, like, you can't see right now, but I'm wearing a Wakanda shirt. Like, it has the list of all the names of
Oh, wow.
Black Panther on it. Um, I will wear my Juneteenth attire to work if I have to work that day. I wear a head wrap to work occasionally. I have
Nice.
locks. I do not try to conform anymore. I would be professional. I will not take personally the misconceptions that people may have about me. If a client was in my office and used a slur that I did not like, and it's happened, I do not take it as them directing that towards me. I have to ask myself, like, is what I'm feeling my stuff or the stuff they're trying to project onto me? How do I want to handle that? How do I want them to see these inwards in a different way? Even colored, I've been called colored in the last 10 years more than once. And I was like, I don't think this person is trying to offend me. I think in their mind, this is what's appropriate for like, they just don't realize it's I live in time warp. Before I moved here, it's one time warp. And before in Alaska is a time warp. And then before I was in Montana, which is
Oh,
another. So they're very, I've had to deal, I've shifted my interactions with people where I'm not taking for granted that, they know what I know, and I'm not going to just assume that they're trying to offend me, and just being very patient and remaining calm. And again, remembering that that's not my stuff. It's their stuff that they're trying to give to me, and I refuse to take it on.
yeah. And the reality is ignorance is a real thing. And we
Mhm.
look at that word so negatively, but the reality is it's just something that people don't know. And they don't, if they don't know, they don't, that's ignorance, right? And so it takes a level of initiative to get past ignorance.
Mhm.
But they have to want to, and they have to want to see that there is a need to get past it. Like they have to understand that there's something for them to get past. So I
And
think
it's
that
not always our job to be that
to
person.
make them right, and that brings up a story that I just saw that just happened recently at a high school where I live in Vegas of a teacher getting to a fight with a student because a student called him a racial slur and he reacted. And they ended up in a fist fight. And so then he got arrested because obviously he's the adult, even though the kid was the aggressor in taunting him and calling him, whatever the racial slur was. I don't even know because they didn't print it, but I can only imagine, right? Being that the teacher was black
Mm-hmm.
and the student wasn't. So, but I mean, it's just like those are the types of things that we have to realize that people are going to either one use ignorantly or two use in the attempt to try to get a reaction out of you. But again, that word emotional intelligence comes up of like, how are you going to exercise your emotional intelligence? Because if you give somebody that much control over you that you're going to immediately react in a violent way, especially, then what does that say about you?
Yes, it contributes to that ignorance. Like, yep, I knew it. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that that's how they would react. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
As opposed to responding with love and kindness,
Yep.
which is tough if you don't feel like you've received it.
Yeah. And it
As
is. It
Mhm.
is. I completely understand that, right? Like I get, trust me, I've been there. I've mentioned this before. I used to be a hothead, like a hothead, okay? Like had zero emotional intelligence because if you look at me wrong, we might be fighting. Like I just that's who I was, right? And so I understand how difficult it is for you to maintain your composure when somebody is trying to attack you. But now that I'm an older adult and have been through the process of maturity and emotional intelligence, I see it from a different angle. And I just wish that more people were able to do that. And my prayer is that people will start to gain, more intelligence in that space. So,
For real. Mhm.
yeah.
The healing that it takes to gain that
It's
intelligence.
yeah. And
It is.
it's not an easy process either, right? It's very difficult to do introspective work and figure out the parts of you that need to heal so that you can build that foundation toward emotional intelligence. It's hard. It's not easy at all. But it is doable because definitely if I can do it, anybody else out there can do it.
It's yeah.
So anyway, let's pick another number.
18.
Too funny. Okay. What is a question you wish people would ask you more often?
You know, I wish people would, It's not even a question, real. I would like to have more nerd conversations with Black folks.
Okay.
Not even like it's not even like, oh, what do they ask me, but I would like to have more conversations about movies and comics and just the weird stuff that I like that I tend to find in other communities, not because I don't think they exist. It's maybe I haven't asked the right people the right questions.
Yeah.
Like, someone likes my shirt, other than just being like this Wakanda forever,
Yeah.
to be like, oh, let's have a conversation about this. So
Yeah.
um yeah, I don't really think I want anyone to ask me anything. I will willingly give up information,
That's
but
good.
and if we're just talking about like what kind of conversations would I like to start with more people, I would love to have more Black women nerds in my life.
Yeah. I think you just got to find your tribe, right? It's up to us to do that. It's up to us to find our people.
Yeah.
And that's not easy either, to be honest. But we have to put it out there though in
Mhm.
order to find our people. Because if we're just sitting at home expecting them to come knock at the door, it's probably not gonna happen. So I
Right.
understand that. All right, next question.
13.
Teens, that's my favorite number, by the way.
Oh, cool.
What that's my first favorite number. 17 is one of my other favorite numbers. In
That's
what ways, in what ways do you think your generation is misunderstood by others?
I think then it goes back to the angry Black woman, or if you talk like me, you're trying to be quote unquote white. Like those are kind of the
Okay.
two that I had to navigate through and shaped a lot of my existential crisis. Um, and so, yeah, I think um, we are people who enjoy different things and have had different experiences, and that is how it shapes who we are. And it doesn't have to be judged or categorized in any way. And the disservice of that thought and belief of believing in these stereotypes and um, not asking or having more conversations about why these things are important, or acknowledgement and acceptance that everyone is different and
Yeah.
that is wonderful, is that you lose an opportunity to shift and expand your own mind
Mm-hmm.
and grow more intelligent, and maybe even missing out on a blessing that someone can offer you just
Yeah.
by kind of being put off by the differences. So
Yeah.
um yeah, I've had a lot of assumptions made about me simply by who I was married to, that I had the similar belief systems, and just even so that was like and I also walk and talk or act a certain way. So those were, oh, she's bougie, which actually I kind of am bougie, I'm not gonna
I
lie.
feel you.
I'm not looking for anybody else to provide that for me, and also I don't let it shape how I interact with other people. I try to be respectful of who they are, but just I guess that's the before I get long-winded and go into circles. That's I'm if I'm angry, it's not because I'm Black, it's because I'm angry.
Right.
And I understand that anger is a secondary emotion, so I probably need to explore that, but I'm also not going to any longer hide my anger. Hopefully you
Mm-hmm.
can see me bounce back and recover, but I'm human, I'm allowed to get angry. Um, but as long as I'm maintaining respectful, then what's it to you? Because I see other people
Yeah.
angry and not being assigned those judgments. But even in the military, it was definitely I literally got paperwork for being mad at work and not shucking and jiving for the man essentially. And so even to the point where I had other people read it and they were like, "Are you literally getting paperwork for being an angry Black woman?" I was like, "That's what it looked like to me." But
That's crazy.
yeah, yep. And so yeah, on the other side of that is like, "Yep, I'm angry. Get over it. It's not my job to pacify you and make you feel better. I have to take care of myself. So I'm
Yeah.
going to step away and I will return when I'm ready to, and it's just taking care of myself.
Yeah, I love that you said, about people being different. One of the things my mom always taught me is that it takes all kinds of people to make up a world. And I think if we accepted that more, like we would be able to get along better because it does. It's going to take all kind. There always has to be balance, right? There's good and there's evil. There's right and there's wrong. Like there has to be balance. And so not everybody is going to be like you. And if the world was just you, then that would be very boring, right? Like there has to be all kinds of people so that we can have all kinds of experiences and, get through this short time that we have here together. The other thing I wanted to address is you were saying how like um that people look at you a certain kind of way because of how you speak or how you carry yourself or things like that. And I wanted to like I've seen this question come up before on different social medias. It's like a double-edged sword, or like we'll often accuse we'll use just white people for right now. We often accuse white people of like they accuse us of trying to talk white, or will accuse others of us for trying to sound white. And then there is the accusation to certain white people of trying to sound black or trying to sound ghetto or trying to sound hood or whatever that looks like. And so how is it okay for us to say that to them or to accuse them of trying to sound like us, so to speak, but we get so upset and angry when people say that we're trying to sound like them? Does that make sense?
Now, I'm just gonna say I don't knock other people's black scent. Just want to put that out there. But I think it comes down to this idea of being inauthentic. You know, um, if you are from the suburbs at a certain point and there's like no black people in your neighborhood, it's interesting that you would present so closely to this thing you don't understand or have contact with.
Yeah.
But on the other end, because I got into this multiple times with when things get bad in your relationship, it doesn't matter who the person is. You're just going to find stuff to easily get mad at them and say.
Yep.
So I'm not here to paint my ex, because we're great co-parents, um, as this person who did things like we did things to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I did to him was negate any experience when it got really bad in our relationship, negate any experience that aligned too closely with my Black experience. Because it's like, you don't get it, you don't understand. And that was very hurtful. I didn't see it as hurtful to him because I was responding to me feeling invalidated in areas.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it just ultimately goes back to this: you can't relate to what I have to go through, and you're only trying to benefit from what these features that you're acquiring offer you.
Mm.
Um, and so for when people, and I've talked forever, and my mom talked similarly, and it was her thing too growing up, like, oh, why are you trying to talk white? Because we're from the South.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was offensive and hurtful because I'm just being me. Um, but it was the assumption that by talking this way, I was trying to be better than the
Yeah.
person accusing me of. And those are the unspoken things. And so one could say, by wearing cornrows, if you are not like of African descent, by wearing certain clothes and you did not live around these people, this culture you're not familiar with, you already have certain privilege. So why are you trying to acquire more by taking on aspects of who you are that are not yours or of your culture? And in fact, could be a direct oppressor or descendant of oppressive peoples who not only benefited from their features that were not stigmatized, but then took the best parts of the things that were stigmatized in our culture and
Mm-hmm.
using them to gain favor and advantage. I think that's the real underlying of all of the nonsense.
Yes.
And I don't have an answer because it's a cycle that I'm slowly getting out of. But it's what trap I fell into, and will willingly admit it was not one that came from love and understanding. It was one that came from hurting and not accepting who I am and allowing other people to dictate whether or not what's important to me is good enough to be important to me.
Yeah. I think the issue is that it doesn't get to go both ways. And I think that's part of the problem too. So like you were saying, they can take on and use to their advantage things from our culture to further their own, which seems to be the history of this country. However, we don't have that same ability. So, like, even if we're talking white, so to speak, or whatever that looks like, or straightening our hair, or whatever that looks like, right? Maybe we will get a little bit more favor because we're trying to conform, but really, we don't get the same ability to use that privilege. It's like it's what's good for the goose is not good for the gander kind of thing in that situation, at least in my perspective.
Mhm.
And so I think that's a part of the problem as well. And I think that's why people get so hurt about it. Um, but I just think it's a conversation that needs to continue, that we need to continue open up. And that's actually one of the reasons why I developed this podcast is because I want to know, these things. I want people to be able to have this conversation. I want people to be able to learn how to understand one another better and our thought processes and how we view things and what that looks like and what it means to each of us and how it makes us feel. And so, thank you for sharing that. So, with that being said, let's pick another number.
Uh, 6.
Six. Six says, how has your cultural background shaped the way you interact with the world? We kind of just were talking about that a little
Yeah,
bit,
for
but
sure.
is there anything else that you want to expound on?
So I will say, so I grew up in the military, mostly military bases, but my dad would deploy a lot. So I also lived in like very, I hate to say monolithic communities, but if the military is very diverse, aside from like you lived with your rank, so it's a caste
Yeah.
system. So I grew up around people who were making this roughly the same amount of money. We all lived in the same kind of house. The government provided our basic needs and we all played together. Race was not a component of my early childhood. Um, Everyone kind of talked like me already. We had similar interests. We all grew up together. Our parents worked in the same areas. There just wasn't those concerns. And then around eighth grade, I moved fully out of the military life and into a lower middle class or working class socioeconomic area that was predominantly Black or Caribbean, Hispanic, but the white or Caucasian population was the minority, but also they were more so integrated in this general lifestyle we had. There weren't like stark differences, whereas, there just weren't there just weren't any issues. Like I wasn't concerned about racial issues in that perspective. Now there was like Black Americans versus Haitians or Haitian
Mm,
Americans. That was a thing, and I didn't understand it because I'm like, we're all Black. What's the problem?
right.
Again, I'm coming in from out of this military lifestyle,
Yeah.
and that got resolved because I was like, this is just stupid. I
Yeah.
haven't be taking any part in this.
Because that
Um,
was more of a cultural thing rather than a skin tone thing, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought it all was silly. And then there was also this idea of um like so I also had the experience of being bused from my lower income community all the way out to West Boca, Raton, where I just hung out with my friends and we were around a bunch of wealthy white,
Mhm.
students. And I was fine because I mean there were some differences in our approach and the way, but I tend to get along with most people because again, the first part of my childhood, these issues about culture and race where it's like everyone has difference and you appreciate and learn and accept. So so I'm coming from a different perspective than a lot of people, but I fell into the trap of feeling less than, feeling like I had to prove myself when I entered into the military and
Mm,
end up getting married to these similar ideals because the military kind of programs you to look for authority and then figure out how you are going to play into that authority. And just based on ranking systems and structures, the people at the top tend not to look like me. And they also do not have the same values of me. And in fact, the people who share my values is like this small minority of like mental health folks.
yeah.
And even within the mental health community, while I was active duty, there was a bunch of like tension within. I think because we were all trying to learn this new power game and figuring out how it worked, where before we all tend to work together. But the military set up in a way culturally where we're competing. We're competing for our next rank, we're competing for
Mm,
awards, we're competing like if there are three officers and there's only two slots the next round, we're competing.
mm,
We have to prove how we're better than our peers, but we also have to work together for them. And we have to network with the right people while in the military to show that we are
wow.
be able to work well with the next rank up and lead people. And how does that look? And how do you follow regs? And will you be the best of the best of whoever? And so
Wow.
there's
That's a lot of pressure.
it's a lot of pressure and it's even more when you stand out,
Mm,
as a person. You're all in the same green uniform. So what else about you makes you stand out? And do you stand out in a good way or a negative way? Um, so that it is a lot of pressure constantly. And then, oh, by the way, even though you're not physically wearing that uniform, you're still in that uniform even when you're not at work because the Air Force owns you and you are an officer at all times and you are an airman at all times. So there's no real relief unless you find your little solace or you realize that it's a game and you figure out how you're going to play the game. Um,
wow.
and I just wasn't great at playing the game. And I realized I didn't want to play it and it wasn't interesting or worth it to me in the long run. But I'm thankful because I believe I was called to join so that I could understand better these dynamics and one, help educate. Because I would never tell anyone at first, I was like, no, why would anyone join the military? But now that I've healed a lot of those wounds and pressures and took responsibility for the things that I could have done differently in the process, um, I would have an honest conversation about my experience with someone, but then I would also let them know that's how I handled it. Like
Yeah.
I know people who handled it differently and done well, and everyone has to figure out how that looks for them. So my culture, to tie it up, is one of very of curiosity, of diversity. It's of trying to conform and it not working out for me. And I will say a lot of the trouble that I got into was falling into the trap that I am a victim of the things I cannot control. Like if someone chooses not to like me because of how I look, my skin color, the fact that I have ovaries, um, that my hair looks how it looks. Well, I have control over how my hair looks, but in general, like I'm choosing to wear it in its natural state and that's how I want it. Um, that's not my problem. It's their problem. And I need to respond to it in the way that portrays me in my best light and
Mhm.
not treat other people as if they are intentionally trying to harm me. Because even if they are, that's God's problem to deal with, right?
Yeah.
I am in control of who I will choose to be no matter what.
Hmm.
And that's not something that I learned culturally. I kind of feel like I fell into the trap of being a victim of like being different culturally, being a minority, how I have to act to get along with other Black people. And anytime I've gotten into trouble with those particular things, it's because I've allowed them to shape my response as opposed to moving past it and being who I say is true to of who I am.
Yeah. And, you know, it's so much easier to do that, right? It's so much easier to allow your response to be shaped by what somebody else is saying. It's harder to not do that. It's harder to, like, again, it falls back on emotional intelligence. It's harder to be in control of your emotions and your responses and your reactions at all times. It's difficult to do that. That's something that we have to train ourselves to do, right? Like, we have to make that a habit. And making those types of habits are not easy. And so, kudos to you, though, for doing the work.
The weirdest thing though on how I kind of got over this thing, because I don't know, it's really strange. It's not I don't think a normal thing.
What?
So my kids are biracial. Their father is white. And I adore his mom, adore her. And so I was doing an ancestral meditation because I knew I had these like historical traumas of being descendants of slaves and being from the
Yeah.
South. And so I was doing it, and I didn't want to pass that on to my girl. Like I was so concerned about it. And so I did this ancestral meditation. And the first thing that happened as I was visualizing my family back, it looped around to my ex-husband's mom and her family. And I was like, this is my family. Like it really hit me that this is my family. They're just some cousins I don't get along with. And I got it on both sides. Like I
Yeah.
cousins I don't get along with. And it helped me resolve, it helped me start really resolving some of these just underlying like nasty feelings that I had related to race relations. And
That's
so I'm
good.
very thankful for my daughter for kickstarting that journey because I think I was kind of complacent on taking my healing to the next level.
Yeah, and I think too, we gotta understand that, like, honestly, we're all so intermingled these days that it doesn't even really matter, to be honest. Like, if we all did like an ancestral search of our DNA, we all got like a little bit of everything. So honestly, it doesn't matter because we're all so interconnected anyway. I looked at my own, and while I have a lot of African descent, I have Ireland, I have Europe, like, you know what I mean? Like, so it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all the same.
All
We
connected.
really are. We're all the same. At the end of the day, we all have all the same stuff.
Mhm.
It might be a little bit different texture, a little bit different shade. It might be, you know what I mean? But we all have all the same stuff. And so I really don't understand why we have to feel the need to be so divided.
Mhm.
It doesn't
Well,
matter.
power and control is the answer.
Yeah.
Power,
Yeah,
control, and influence.
but and for what? Because you can still have that though without being so divisive. Like,
Yeah.
you still can have that, right? And so it's like it just doesn't make any sense to me why you feel like you have to make somebody else, you know, down here just to make yourself up here. Like, it just doesn't. I don't know. People just go about things the wrong way, in my opinion. But whatever. Let's pick another number.
Seven.
I think we got time for one or two more.
Okay.
Number 7 says, what's a personal struggle you faced that might surprise people who think they know you well? Share whatever you're comfortable with.
Such an open book. I have a hard time. I have a vision of like how I want my life to be, and I get really upset when it's not in that way. So, I worked really hard to live in the neighborhoods I want to live, in the housing I want to live. And after this current transition period that I'm in, I end up kind of back to square one, back in my tiny little
Oh,
apartment in a community that isn't in the neighborhood I would want to ideally be in.
mm,
And I had it's humbling. Being a humble person
excuse me.
has become a new challenge that I'm willing to accept because I was used to kind of boasting about my accomplishments. It was part of me trying to prove like that I am that girl that God says I am, that
And
I
you
know
still are.
I am.
So,
Thank you. But I realize I don't have to explain that to anybody. And now I just have to get my actions to catch up with this new belief that I've acquired. And
Yeah.
knowing that it'll all come back. Because it has started to all come back. All the things that I lost, like you mentioned, at one point starting from scratch. Um, I have as well, and in a year, a lot of that has turned around rather quickly, and it was just a matter of ego, setting my ego aside and being true to who I am. And I know people who know me know that, like, you know, I'm strong and I'm motivated and I get stuff done, but also I don't, a lot of that was because I felt I had to.
Hmm.
Realizing that I don't, and it I almost feel guilty being like, you
Hmm.
know what? I don't even want to work that hard anymore. Like, I don't need to be a hard worker to prove my worth. I'm allowed to enjoy my free time. I'm
Yeah.
allowed to pursue a business. I'm also allowed to run a department and still be like, it doesn't have to be this hard. I don't owe you an explanation. I don't know. No, like those are okay to say.
Yeah, they are. I love that for you. Okay, one more. Pick a number.
21.
21 says, what life experiences have had the most significant impact on shaping who you are today?
Growing up as a military child, being an officer in the military, marrying and leaving my husband. I don't mean to say leaving in a, it was a, I'm not trying to paint him in any way other than like I had to make decisions that made sense for me. um, I think he is, like I said, an exceptional father, and I'm very grateful for him in our lives, me and my daughter's life. I appreciate him. I'm glad we were brought together for that purpose, and we'll continue to learn and grow and receive blessings and care. But the person I had to be like, this is not working for me, was probably the biggest act of putting myself first that I've done ever.
Mm,
It was the first time I was like, I don't care if this will make you feel bad. I have to be the person that I like so that my kids don't see me as, because I was being the angry Black woman, all those things that I did not want to be,
yeah,
I had become, and I did not want my daughter, especially where I was at that point. I was the only Black person they were seeing regularly, and I was like, I don't want how you see me now to be what you think of
the
us. Yeah.
entire race of Black people, culture of Black people. That's so good. Yeah, and I think that's so important because you are their first, you're their first line of contact. Like
Mhm.
if you're showing them negative, characteristics, then they're definitely going to develop subconsciously that stereotype and start to project that into the world as they grow older. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So my final question is, what legacy do you want to leave behind and how are you working toward it?
So I want my girls to know that they can be whoever they want to be. Um, I want them to be able to see how to problem solve and think through things, and to know that other people do not have control over how they respond to things, and that they're perfect just the way they are in all their flaws and all their beauty and all their aspirations and all their failures. And in turn, I want my fellow women who served in the military to know the same thing. In that we are not the result of failure. Failure is a tool that we have had the pleasure to have, and we can use that to overcome and spread more joy and wisdom to the world. And that's what Empower Women Veterans is about. That's what the Armed with Ambition show, Navigating Military and Life Transitions, is about using your story, making your trauma. just the climax of the overall story and really focusing on the build up and the after lessons and how that helps people. And then, yeah, that's it though. That's it. The traumatic thing that happened to you is a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. The whole puzzle is going to turn out beautifully. Sometimes you just need that little janky piece to bring it together.
I love that. And those were amazing final words. I'm not even going to ask you for final words because that was incredible. So thank you for that. So if anybody out there is listening and wants to connect with you or wants to support your venture with your TV show or anything like that, how can they get a hold of you?
Yep, you can email me directly at empowerwomenveterans@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Siobhan Cunningham. Those are the best ways if you want to get in contact with me to catch me. And then if you just want to see what's going on, I have the socials on LinkedIn. And I mean, yes, I have a LinkedIn Empower Women Veterans page, at Empower Women Veterans for IG. And I believe Facebook is something like that too.
I understand. I tell you what, I had to try to make all of mine the same and I didn't get to because some of them wouldn't let me change it. But I'm like, Lord, all these different screen names and stuff, it throws you off. But so I tell people, I just be like, look, my name is Souraya Christine. I am very Googleable. So
Yeah.
just Google me and you'll find me everywhere, okay? Because it's too much to try to remember. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Siobhan, for just spending this time with me. Thank you for being my very second guest on What Is It Like to Be You? I'm so excited to have had you as one of the founding guests on this show. And I truly wish you so much success, like all the best in everything that you're doing. I just think you're incredible. And so I really, really appreciate you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And absolutely, we are out of here, you guys. That is a wrap on episode number 2. And we'll be back next week. Take care. Love you. Bye.